Welcome to Unspoken Affairs, where every story pulls back the curtain on the secrets we bury, the lines we blur, and the moments we never meant to let happen, yet somehow did. Today's story isn't about betrayal in the traditional sense, about the kind of silence that grows louder with time, about tension that doesn't speak but breathes. This is the story of a summer that changed everything, a story I've never told. Not to my friends, not even to my husband. Because some truths don't belong in the daylight. My family had gone to visit relatives for a few days, but I didn't go with them. I told them I was tired of the nonstop traffic, the endless notifications, the synthetic buzz of city life. And while that was true, it wasn't the only reason. I needed stillness. I needed space. I needed to be left alone with my thoughts, even if I didn't quite understand why. So I stayed behind. What no one knew was that I wasn't completely alone. My husband's closest friend, Daniel, had been staying with us for the summer. He was supposed to be helping my husband with a project, but with my husband away. It was just the two of us in the house. That evening was oppressively quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your skin. I sat on the balcony in a thin-strapped sundress, barefoot, a glass of cold homemade lemonade in one hand and a book in the other, but I couldn't focus on a single page. The words slipped off the paper like water. Everything grated on me, the dry scent of dust from the nearby fields, the low thrum of a television in the apartment next door, even the pulse tapping steadily on my wrist. I needed to wash it all away. Without a sound, I walked to the bathroom. The door creaked slightly as I opened it, stepped into the shower, twisted the knobs all the way to hot, and let the near-scorching water pour over me. Eyes closed, I imagined, each drop rinsing off the irritation, the weight, the strange heat beneath my skin. The steam curled around me, soft and thick, muffling the outside world. For a moment, I felt clean, weightless. But as with most things that feel too perfect, it didn't last. I reached for the towel only to realize I'd forgotten it. Shit. I muttered under my breath, peeking at the empty hook on the back of the door. How could something so small make me feel so helpless? I cracked open the door to the hallway. Silence, no footsteps, no voices, just the faint ticking of the clock in the living room. Wrapping one arm across my chest, the other across my hips, I stepped out, bare feet soft, against the wood floor. Just a few steps to the linen closet, and then I bumped into him. Daniel wasn't supposed to be there. He froze. So did I. He had a mug in one hand, and his eyes widened the second they saw me. I was practically naked, still wet, drops running down my collarbone, clinging to my thighs. The steam from the bathroom still wrapped around me like a fog. And in that suspended moment, we just stared at each other. Sorry. He stammered quickly, turning his face away but not stepping back. I forgot the towel. I whispered, my voice small and awkward. He reached for one from the closet and handed it to me, still not looking directly at me. His fingers shook slightly as I took it. And yet I could feel it, the gaze he wasn't giving me. The tension he was holding back. Thanks, I mumbled, retreating back to the bathroom and shutting the door behind me. I leaned against it, my heart thudding so hard I thought it might echo. My skin burned, not from the heat of the water, but from that look. The one that wasn't just friendly, and the worst part, the part that scared me most. My response hadn't been innocent either. The morning after was stifling. The sky was the color of damp ash, and the air carried that heavy humming stillness that always came before a storm. I woke up tangled in sheets that clung to my skin like a second layer. My body felt too aware, too sensitive. Even the sound of the bedsheet dragging against itself sent a shiver across my arms. I tried to shake the memory from my head, but the more I tried, the sharper it came back. And then, in the kitchen, there he was, standing at the counter, slicing pears with practiced movements. He wore one of my husband's old aprons. It should have looked ridiculous. It didn't. His arms were bare, the muscles in his forearms flexing with each motion of the knife. He didn't notice me right away, but the second he did, his gaze flickered quick, instinctive. It started at my face, then dipped just slightly down my legs. It was fast, but not fast enough to miss. "Want coffee?" he asked, already reaching. "For a second cup, yeah?" I replied, brushing past him so close our shoulders touched. My head's killing me. He paused just a beat too long, then nodded and poured the water into the pot. We drank in silence. I stretched my legs out. Onto the railing, flexed my toes absently. He watched me. I could feel it, but he didn't say a word. There was something swelling in that quiet between us. Not a storm, not yet. But the clouds were gathering. That afternoon, I took a blanket and a book and headed to the backyard. Told myself I needed to read, but again, the words didn't stick. They never did anymore. I lay on my stomach, propped up on my elbows. The back of my tank top folded in on itself, exposing the curve of my lower back. The sun slipped between the clouds and saw flashes. Somewhere nearby, I heard the sound of water spraying the hose. Daniel was washing the car. I could hear the rhythm of its splash, pause, spray. I could hear him muttering to himself now and then, a habit he picked up whenever he concentrated. I stayed still, listening, waiting. But then I stood. I don't know why. Or maybe I do. I walked toward him barefoot, my steps soft against the stone tiles. He stood with his back to me, shirtless now. Water glistened along his shoulders, trailing down his spine. I grabbed the hose lying near his foot and sprayed it directly onto his legs. He spun around. The shock lasted less than a second. Then we were both laughing loud and free and ridiculous. "All right," he said, smiling. "You want to play?" He pointed the nozzle at me. "No, wait." Too late. The stream hit me square in the chest. I gasped. The thin tank top soaked instantly, clinging to every inch of skin beneath. I folded my arms across my chest instinctively, but the damage was done. The wet fabric outlined everything. His expression changed, not abruptly, just subtly. He froze, water still spraying onto the ground. Then he turned off the hose. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "It's okay," I replied, too quickly, too softly. He handed me a towel, his eyes darting away. But the pause, when our fingers touched, was long enough to be undeniable. His skin was warm. His hands were damp like mine. "You should change. You'll catch a cold." I nodded, not looking at him either, but as I walked away, wrapped in the towel, I knew he was watching. I felt it, and I didn't stop him. That night, a storm brewed again beyond the pine trees. We didn't say much, just sat together on the couch in the living room while a movie flickered on screen. The lightning painted the room in pale blue. Flashes. The thunder was a distant drumbeat, always coming, never arriving. I wrapped myself in a blanket, tucked my legs beneath me. He sat beside me, not touching, but close to close. About halfway through the film, I felt it. His hands softly, hesitantly, resting on my ankle. He didn't move for a long time. Didn't either. The room seemed to pulse with the sound of my heart. Or maybe his. Or maybe both. The movie kept playing, but I no longer heard it. His hand began to shift just slightly. The movement was so subtle, so gentle, it was almost like he wasn't touching me at all. Like the air itself had grown fingers. Still, I didn't move. And in that stillness, I answered him not with words, not with permission, but with surrender. My body didn't retreat. It listened. Eventually, I stood up. Not quickly, not dramatically. I said nothing, just untangled myself from the blanket and whispered, "I'm going to bed." He rose with me, walked a few steps behind. When we reached the hallway, he stopped. His hand touched my back, barely grazing the curve of my spine, a light trembling stroke through the cotton of my shirt. I turned to him. Our eyes met. Neither of us flinched. His lips parted. He didn't speak. Instead, he reached forward slowly. and touched the edge of my sleeve. His fingers squeezed once, delicate, tentative. "If you want me to stop," he whispered, "just say no and I'll disappear." But I didn't say no. I didn't say anything. He looked at me again, for the first time in my life saying my name, like it meant something more. I nodded once. Barely. He leaned forward and kissed not my lips, not my neck, but my forehead, like it was sacred, like I was something fragile. "Too far," I whispered. "Or too close," he replied. And then I stepped back just one step, but enough. "Give me the night," I said, "just to think, just to understand what I really want." He nodded, almost respectfully. But sleep didn't come easy. I woke to the sound of my own breath. I lay in bed with the window cracked open, the cool countryside air curling into the room like smoke. The wind stirred the curtains, and the crickets were in full chorus, their rhythm matching the restless beating of my heart. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing in that hallway, whispering my name, touching my sleeve, kissing my forehead. My body buzzed with something between fear and longing, something too primal for a name. I tried to fight it. I tried to remember the rules, the expectations, the weight of consequence. But all I could think of was how warm his touch had been, how gentle, how unlike anything I had ever known. I wasn't a child anymore, but I wasn't entirely secure in myself either. I was hovering in that hazy middle ground, old enough to ache, young enough to be ashamed of it. I pulled the covers higher. I turned over, then over again. Nothing helped, till I couldn't take it anymore. At around 3 in the morning, I got up quietly, carefully, like a thief in my own house. I padded barefoot down the stairs and through the screen door. The night greeted me with a hush. Sky was swollen with clouds, but a sliver of moonlight escaped, casting long silver ribbons across the grass. I made my way toward the pond, the same one where I'd gone countless times before. Only this time, I wasn't going there to throw stones. I wasn't going there to feed ducks. I was going there to breathe, to think, to break. The pond was still too. I stood at the edge for a long while, arms crossed against the coolness of night. My reflection wavered on the water, fragile, ghost-like. I didn't recognize her. The woman in the water had secrets. She carried them in her collarbone, her lips, her eyes. Then I heard the steps, soft at first, then closer. I didn't turn around. "You couldn't sleep either?" she said, barely above a whisper. I shook my head. Squee stood beside me, hands in the pockets of his robe, eyes on the same wavering reflection. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like the pause between lightning and thunder. "I used to come out here when life felt too heavy," he said finally. "I never knew that," I murmured. "There's a lot you don't know," he said, his voice low. "About me. About yourself." That last word lingered too long, like it meant something more. I didn't ask him to explain. "Dead?" I whispered. "Do you think we're broken?" He looked at me. "No," he said. "I think we're cracked. Is that worse?" "No," he said. "It just means we're real." And then, before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped into him, just slightly. My shoulder brushed his arm, my head tilted toward his chest. I didn't fall into him. I leaned a deliberate decision. His breath caught. And then, ever so slowly, one of his arms rose and wrapped gently around my shoulders. We stood like that for what felt like forever. Not kissing, not confessing, just holding. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe it was healing. Maybe it was both. But in that moment, it was ours.